How is everyone doing today? Welcome back to another episode of The Banker Next Door. I am your host, Dr. Joe Berquist. Today, we're going to be covering another great survey from Bank Director, their 2025 Governance Best Practices Survey. This is a really good survey that they put out every year, basically looking at bank boards, their performance. How do they look at and evaluate risk? How do they handle strategy? How are they just kind of managing the overall bank? What do they think about a number of the issues that are going on right now? So with that being said, I'm going to bring the survey up. And if you would like to look at this, there is a link to the survey in the description down below. I would also direct everyone to go to the Bank Director website and check out, because they have a lot of other articles and great stuff over there as well. But so this is the 2025 Governance Best Practices Survey, and it's sponsored by Bradley, who is a law firm that conducts the survey with them. So let's just get down into, and I'm going to blow this up a little bit here at this point. Okay, so let's get down into the executive summary for a second here. So reviewing the strategic plan is an annual practice for most bank boards, according to 80% of the directors and CEOs responding to Bank Director's 2025 Governance Best Practices Survey, sponsored by the law firm Bradley, Arendt, Bolt, and Cummings. But the board's engagement in setting their institution strategy varies widely, from active collaborators who drive the process and develop the plan with management, 17%, to handoff boards that are barely involved in strategic planning at all, 3%. The majority, 59%, say their board establishes the bank's risk appetite, offering operational guardrails for bank executives, but leave the management team to develop a plan that will meet directors' approval. There's room for many boards to be more involved. 39% of survey participants believe directors could better contribute to setting the strategic direction of the bank. So, senior management will execute on the bank's strategy, but the board has an important oversight responsibility to hold management accountable, and directors can play a significant role in offering feedback. Says Robert Maddox, a partner at Bradley. Directors want to be collaborative up front as to priorities and allocation of limited resources, he said. How that actually happens, that's up to senior management to work out. Boards should avoid becoming a rubber stamp, especially when it comes to risk oversight. You're supposed to be an active director who provides direction and guidance, says Maddox. Board members should ask questions when executives want to loosen risk limits in pursuit of growth, something that can have a negative effect in a downturn. As a director, he says, I want to be able to see more and more information with regard to where our risk tolerances are, especially in this environment. Being active players in the bank's strategy requires an engaged board with an array of skills and backgrounds. The majority report their boards are steeped in expertise in finance and accounting, 92%, audit, 84%, real estate, 72%, legal, 68%, and risk at 62%. And despite recent backlash on diversity programs, almost half say their board has 3 or more members who represent diverse attributes based on race, ethnicity, or gender, consistent with last year's survey. 40% say their board specifically considers race, ethnicity, gender, or LGBTQ plus status in addition to skills and expertise when evaluating director candidates, a practice more prevalent at banks exceeding $1 billion in assets. It is good to have people from different walks of life, from different backgrounds. Absolutely, says Maddox. I think we'll continue to see diversity on our boards. I think that's healthy. So, what are the key findings here? So we got setting expectations. So while it's common for boards to outline expectations for members to attend board meetings at 95%, participate in training and education 85%, and prepare for meetings 81%, and respectfully interact with their colleagues in the boardroom at 81%. Few respondents say their boards set standards for engaging with regulators, 36%, shareholders at 35%, employees at 27%, or clients at 20%. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine a lot of management teams that want their boards out there, engaging regularly with regulators, shareholders, employees, or clients. I mean, you're kind of, you can really cause some issues there. You can really step on your toes or undermine your management team. So, yeah, I can't imagine a lot of bank CEOs out there wanting their boards to be actively engaging with a lot of those stakeholders for a lot of reasons. Virtual deliberations. So almost 3/4 say their full boards meet monthly, and the majority, 85%, say their board allows virtual attendance for board and committee meetings. Those meetings tend to span a median 4 hours. So lengthy board packets, 61% receive board materials more than 4 days ahead of the board meeting and typically spend a median 4 hours reviewing that information. Board packets span a median of 200 pages overall per meeting, ranging from 75 pages at institutions under 250 million in assets and up to a median 400 pages for banks above 10 billion. Now, for anybody who's not familiar, what is a typical bank board meeting look like? Even for smaller banks, even for banks under 10 billion in asset size. I mean, typical board meetings, depending on the length of material you have to run through, I would say on average last at a minimum of 2 hours, probably 2 to 3 hours. And then sometimes, again, if you're doing strategic planning, if you're doing other stuff, you might meet offsite. You might spend a day working on a whole bunch of stuff for a bank. So again, these meetings are generally long. They're not generally short meetings, meaning like an hour or less. And they cover you cover a tremendous amount of information. Like I said, the lengthy board packets, generally span 200 pages overall. So I mean, there's a lot of information, a lot of stuff that you're going over as a director of a bank board. So okay, and then leading the board. Most respondents, 60%, say their board is led by an independent chair. While board members overall rate the chair's performance highly, they do indicate areas for improvement. 37% rate their chair as somewhat effective and 8% as somewhat ineffective in facilitating active board discussions. When asking about taking an active role in setting the board agenda, 46% rate the chair as somewhat effective and 6% as somewhat ineffective. 40% say the chair or lead director actively engages directors who don't frequently speak up. And then finally, new perspectives. So 57% say their board discusses refreshment annually, and the survey indicates that boards are regularly adding new members. 54% say 1 or 2 new directors have joined the board since January of 2022. Just 18% say no new directors have joined the board in that time. So, okay, let's jump down to the bottom here for just a second because I want to show you guys a couple of the charts here. So, as far as people involved in this survey, who did they survey? So ownership structure, 48% were a private bank, 23% were public as far as NASDAQ or NYSE, 16% were public as in over the OTC market, 13% were from mutual. Respondent ages. So basically the vast majority, 41% were of ages 61 to 70 years old. 24% were 71 to 80. 22% were 51 to 60. And 10% were 41 to 50 years old. 81 or over were 3%. And then 31 to 40 were only 1%. So the vast majority, so you're talking about 65% of your board members were ages 61 to 80 years of age. Respondents' gender, 76% were male, 24% were female. What regions? 22% were from the Northeast, 35% from the Midwest, 22% from the South, 9% from the Southwest, 7% from Pacific, and 5% from Rocky Mountain West. So I think, good diversity, I think, across the country. And then what was the average tenure of a director in this survey? 11 years. So 11 years on the board of their respective bank. And then what were the titles? Independent director, 44%, CEO, 24%, independent chair, 11%, CEO and chair, 10%, other 8%, and then lead directors, 3%. Asset size, 1 to 5 billion, 36% of the survey. 500 million to 1 billion, 22%. So basically, 58% of the survey were for banks $5 billion and under. 250 million to 500 million, 13%. Under 250 million, 11%, and then over 10 billion, 9%, and then 5 billion to 10 billion, 9%. So actually, I spoke too soon. The vast majority, like 90% of the survey, are banks, basically under 10 billion. Only 9% of the survey participants were over banks at over 10 billion in asset size. So the vast majority of representation here under banks under 10 billion in asset size. So, all right, now let's go back. I mean, there's about 30 questions here. I'm not going to run through, every single one of these questions, but, does the board set expectations for individual directors in the following areas? 95% of attendance, 85% participating in board training and education, 81% respectful interaction with other board members, 81% preparation for meetings, 77% contributing to board level discussions, 71% contributing to committee level discussions, 56% engaging with bank executives, 46% bringing business to the bank, 45% using the bank's products and services, 36% engaging with regulators, 35% engaging with shareholder owners, 27% engaging with bank employees, and then 20% engaging with clients. Now, I think if you are sitting on a privately owned bank board, some of the things that are going to be bigger, bringing business to the bank, I think is going to be a much bigger issue for you. Helping the bank to raise capital, i.e. you contributing more money into the bank from time to time, is going to be a bigger issue at privately owned banks. I think with raising money in the capital markets, if you're a larger bank, if you're over 10, if you're up to, if you're over 5 billion, certainly over 10 billion in asset size, again, you've probably got some very good financial professionals there that you don't need to get as actively engaged in the raising of capital in the capital markets. You probably have some great CFO and other finance professionals there that will handle a lot of that. But again, if you have some board members that are steeped in that kind of expertise, always helps. So just to point a couple things out, how often does your full board meet? 73% say monthly. I would say that. I would say, again, I would say most boards probably meet 10 months out of the year. They probably take 1 or 2 months off, maybe like December or August, something like that. Can directors attend board meetings and or committee meetings virtually? 85% say yes. So that's interesting. Approximately how many hours per board meeting do you spend on the following activities? So median hours reviewing board material is 4. Median full board meeting hours, 4 hours. Like I said, usually, in my experience, a lot of the board meetings at a lot of the banks I worked at are usually on average 2 to 3 hours. They're saying they spend an hour, average of 4 hours in the board meetings. In 2024, how frequently did the full board discuss the following? Progress on key strategic initiatives of 54%, risk assessments, tolerances, and limits, 52%, liquidity and funding, 85%, investment portfolio performance, 59%, cybersecurity, fraud, attacks, and threats, 51%, executive team performance, 17%, CEO and executive succession planning, 7%. 67% said annually they did that topic discussion. Board refreshment, 57% said it was an annual topic. Broader economic and competitive issues, 57% at every board meeting. So approximately how many hours per committee meeting do you spend on the following activities? Median hours reviewing committee materials, 2. Median committee meeting hours, 2 hours for meeting committee meetings. Approximately how many hours per month do you spend on other board-related activities, including training and education or business development? Approximately 4 hours. Do you feel you have enough time to focus on your duties as a bank board member in addition to other responsibilities outside the bank? 95% said yes. Is your board packet well organized with summaries, key indicators, trends, and progress on strategic initiatives? 87% said yes. How many pages are in the typical board packet? 200 pages. How many days prior to the board meeting are materials generally received by directors? 61% said more than 4 days ahead of the meeting. Does your board conduct board performance assessment? 41% said yes annually. 37% said no, we don't conduct performance assessment. And then 22% said yes, but not every year. Does your board conduct peer-to-peer evaluation of its members? 54% said no, we don't perform peer-to-peer evaluations. 17% said yes annually. 16% said no, but we're considering it. And 14% said yes, but not every year. Strategic planning. How often does your board review the bank's strategic plan? 80% said annually. That's great. I should be 100%, but but hey, what do I know, right? And then the last one I'll end with is, which statement best describes your board's role in developing the bank's strategic plan? 59% said the board establishes the bank's risk appetite, but the plan is developed by management with the board's approval. And yeah, and I think that's I think that's a good way to go about it. I would very much agree with that setup. Um, all right, and then like I said, there's a few more questions in there to go through, but like I said, I wasn't going to spend time going through every single question. So again, great survey, gives you some great insight into what goes on in with a typical bank, typical like community banks board of directors. What's the oversight they perform, how many hours, what's in the board packet, just different things going on there. So again, I always love to look at this report. It gives you some really good insights as to just what's happening at the board level. So like I said, if you want to check out the report, there is a link to it in the description down below. But with that, I will wrap up by saying, if you like this episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, as that always helps the channel. Remember, we are on YouTube, Rumble, and all major podcast platforms. Please be sure to leave your comments down below, as I always love getting back to everybody. And as always, make sure to check out some of the other content on the channel. I thank you for listening. Have a great day out there, and I will see you again real soon. Thanks a lot.